if your intention is to encourage the community, beautiful, alhamdulillah, but make that your intention. That's the point. But if your intention is to show off, hey, I'm able to give da'wah, I'm able to defeat this person in an argument, or I was able to guide this person, and you show it off like, yeah, look, I got this new shahada, that's where you want to check your niyyah. And again, this is with any Islamic action. Just quick reflection, right? Think about your salah. When you're praying, do you pray longer when you're in jama'ah, or would you pray the same if you were alone? So these are things that we should ask. Riyah is a hidden shirk, brothers and sisters. It's very scary. The Prophet ﷺ, he described this type of shirk as a black ant on a black rock in a dark night. That's how the Prophet ﷺ described riyah. It's really hard to see. And so we always have to recheck our niyyah over and over. What is my intention? For example, in giving salah, the imam leads, right? Do you recite better? Do you recite more beautiful when you're giving, when you're leading prayer, as opposed to just you praying at home? Are you more focused, while you're in prayer, when you're an imam, as opposed to not being an imam? Or is it the same? When you give sadaqah, there's a box. If people are watching you, do you intentionally do it so that people can see you? Or would you have given that same amount at that same time if no one was there? So these are all ways to reflect, inshallah. And the whole point is, sincerity is essential as a da'i. You have to be sincere. And this is, again, with any action in Islam. So we must be sincere and genuine when talking to non-Muslims. And we know, obviously, what comes from the heart goes to the heart, right? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us sincere and keep us on a sincere disposition throughout the course of the remaining of our life. And stick to what you know. This is a great point here. The reason being, first of all, many Muslims today, they're very intimidated when speaking to non-Muslims. Mostly, the major reason why Muslims are intimidated when speaking to non-Muslims is for the very reason that they feel that they fear failure. So they fear that they're not going to give the proper answer accordingly, or they're just going to halt, or they're not going to know what to say next, or perhaps they'll answer it wrong and they'll be held accountable. And so there is this modern day trend of people wanting to give da'wah in our modern day community, but they're just scared to. They're just scared to. There's basically showstoppers there, if you want to call them, or deal breakers, where they say, no, I'm not going to do this because I don't feel like I'm qualified. And even some go to the degree to say that I'm not a scholar, I'm not a sheikh, I'm not someone who has a whole lot of knowledge, so I can't give da'wah. But really, according to the ulama, they have said that the only thing you need to be equipped with in order to give da'wah is essentially, which is tawheed, right? La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So simply, if you know the fundamentals of tawheed, which alhamdulillah we covered in the beginning, right? Tawheed al-rububiyyah, tawheed al-uluhiyyah, tawheed asma' wa sifat. So long as we know these, we are able to convey that message to them and invite them to Islam accordingly. Because now we know where the tawheed is and we know where the shirk is too. So we can properly detect where the issue is and call them to Islam accordingly, inshallah. So that's the point. And you don't have to be a scholar. You don't have to be a sheikh, right? You don't have to be an ustaz to give da'wah. You can be the layman Muslim, you can be the average Muslim with your fair amount of knowledge, or your simple, just ground level knowledge, and give da'wah. It's okay. We have, alhamdulillah, brothers and sisters who have, very little experience in the da'wah field. Perhaps they never studied Islam. But what they do know is they know what tawheed is. They know that you have to worship the one true God. They know that if you worship other than Allah, other than the one true God, then you fell into polytheism. Right? They know that the final prophet of Allah is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They know that you have to believe in all the prophets and the messengers. Right? And we make no distinction between them. We believe the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the seal of prophethood, but we make no distinction with them on an overall basis. And they all came with the same message. They were all sent to different nations except the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He came to everyone. So long as we know these basic fundamentals, it suffices. It's enough. It qualifies you to give da'wah. And this is all you need. And in fact, when you go out and give da'wah, you find that the majority of the conversations are just mostly about tawheed, right? They're just about hey, God's existence and how many gods are there? Is there one God? So do you believe in Jesus as God? Do you believe in a one true God, but did Jesus worship God, or was he a prophet? So it's like things like that, right? It all has to do with tawheed. So why don't you believe in a God? Most of the conversations are like that. And then they ask you, well, why do you believe in a God? So, as long as you can stick to what you know, then inshallah you're on the right track. And whatever you convey is vital to have knowledge concerning it or understand it properly. So if you do want to convey something, also stick to what you know. So, and this is the key point here, is you need to have the fundamentals, and if you feel like something is outside of your league, leave it. Don't go there. So for example, someone asks you about chapter 9, verse 5 in the Quran, right? Where it says, slay the unbelievers wherever you see them. If you don't know, the historical context behind it, if you don't know the purpose of revelation, the storyline behind those verses, leave it. Say, that's a great question that you've asked. I don't want to tell you to approach it, I'll tell you later. That's a great question you asked, but I can have someone answer that question for you. If you would like, we can exchange contact information, and perhaps we can discuss at a later time. And then maybe you can start talking about what you do know. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ said. The Prophet ﷺ said, بَلِّغُ عَنِّي وَلَا آيَةٍ. He said, convey for me, even if it's one ayah. So if the one ayah you know is قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٍ, then relay it. It may be the one verse that will guide them to Islam. It may be the one verse that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will use to expand their breast, to open their heart. So we need to follow this prophetic tradition, brothers and sisters. Do not be intimidated. Feel confident when you're out there. If you convey what you know, alhamdulillah. Okay, and if it's a rude person, if they're very aggressive, then you may want to even leave the conversation. But to be honest with you, being in the dawah field now for maybe 8+ years, most conversations are very lenient, they're very welcoming, they're very respectful. Most of them. You may have a few people that come up to you. For example, I'll give you one example. Someone comes up to you and says, you hand to them a pamphlet, right? You hand out a pamphlet, one of the Wise Son pamphlets or whatnot. So they're walking past your table, and you're giving them a pamphlet, and they're like, no thanks, I don't want acid to be thrown on my face, or something like that. We've had these kind of situations. Another situation where we tried giving someone a Quran, and they say, get out of our country, why do you guys keep bombing us? All this kind of stuff, right? So these kind of like very explicit terms or statements that they make. So yes, those situations do happen sometimes in dawah, but for the most part, I'd say perhaps over 95%, if not more, the conversations are very respectful. People are really happy to see us. A lot of people just walk by, but for the people who do come and stop by, they're very interested. They want to talk to you. They want to engage with you. And subhanAllah, it's a beautiful experience. So if you guys haven't had the chance to give live dawah yet, inshallah tomorrow will be the day. We're going to 4 locations at least to give dawah. So if this will be your first time, I think it'll be a great experience for you all. And this is what you need to know, is stick with what you know. So even if you know that one verse, relay it. If you know that one hadith, say it. Anything that can help you articulate tawheed and bring them away from shirk, this is the approach that you want to take. Okay, so about 10 more minutes inshallah and we'll stop. So, your character, we're going at a very good pace, alhamdulillah, very good pace, because we're going to get to the point right before the role playing where we're going to start getting practical. So we're going to do real sessions, real practice. It's going to get really fun and interactive very soon. Your character. You want to be kind and gentle. Okay, again, you want to be kind, you want to be soft-spoken, soft-hearted to the person, and be gentle. Don't be aggressive. Don't be overly loud, so control the tone. Control the body language, as we're going to cover. Do not be harsh. Don't be harsh with your dawah. Don't offend a person. Don't think of it as a boxing match. It's not a boxing match. Be soft-hearted. Understand the person. Be empathetic. Be sympathetic. Good manners. So have good ikhlaq. Ikhlaq is part of our deen. So if we have ikhlaq with our Muslims, why can't we have ikhlaq with non-Muslims, right? Ikhlaq is universal. It's supposed to be for everyone. Have a polite tongue. So, don't curse. Right? Don't say bad words. I mean, we shouldn't do this anyway, right? Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said that, this is one of the greatest means for a person to enter hellfire is because of the tongue. So we have to always check our tongue. No ego or pride. We already talked about the ego part. So don't be egoistic. Don't be prideful. Alhamdulillah, we are very proud to be Muslim, yes. But don't be prideful to a point that it will make you arrogant. Because arrogance was the very first sin that the pseudo-rationalist, Satan, Shaitan, committed. Right? So, this is what we need to take heed of. We don't want to have an egoistic approach because ego comes from shaitan, right? And good ikhlaq comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Body language. Body language, I think, is very important because communication, according to communication masters, communication experts, words only account, I think, for like 30 to 40% of communication. What counts more is body language. You know, even the body language I'm using right now has a meaning, a subconscious meaning that you guys may see, you may not see. Subconsciously, you take in body language. Body language means so much. And as a speaker, you become more accustomed with body language over time, and that helps a lot in the dawah. So not just body language, but also facial expressions, looking at people a certain way, talking to people a certain way, engaging with them, eye contact. All of these things are very helpful as a speaker. And ultimately, we need to think of ourselves as consultants. You know, like we're people who, we're trying to help people find their inner selves, right? And we're trying to help them connect to their Lord, the Lord of the worlds. So we can think of ourselves as counselors even. So you're counseling the person. Counselors of the soul, inshallah. And in order to do that, you need to incorporate whatever, faculties Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, which, alhamdulillah, Allah has given us this house, our souls are within it, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this house that we can use to communicate with others. When I say house, I'm talking about the body, right? Like the housing. And within the housing is the soul. Okay. This is where it starts getting fun and interactive and very educational and practical. Okay. So what are the most difficult questions people have asked you about Islam? I want to pause here. For those of you who don't have a pen and whatever, that's fine. If you want to take out your phones, you can. Can you please find the top 2 questions, perhaps the most difficult questions that you can ever think of when it comes to Islam and non-Muslims and some of their concerns? Just the top 2. So I'll give you, inshallah, maybe 5 minutes or less. Just think of the top 2 questions. You can write it down if you have it in memory, alhamdulillah. If you want to put it on your phone, that's fine. But just take a few minutes, inshallah, and think about this. I think 5 minutes is too much, so we'll make it like 2 minutes. It seems like some people are ready. Just looking at you
It has
guys.
to be specifically a question, or like a big question that represents a lot of stuff.
Either or. What you may feel from what you've encountered is a very difficult question, or perhaps the most difficult question that you've ever came across or heard of. I mean, you may have not dealt with it directly, or maybe you have, but just the most difficult question in terms of, Islamic misconceptions or whatnot. And if you did come up with the questions, try to think about how you would answer it. Maybe like 1 or 2 things you would say for each of those questions. Or how would you approach that kind of question?
Hello?
I'll give you guys like maybe 30 more seconds. Okay, so most likely a lot of you are going to have similar questions in mind. but let's try to get a few, so please raise your hands. Yes.
One time he asked me why should I believe in any religion. I do good, I don't harm anybody, and then
Okay.
why should I believe in Islam or any other religion?
Okay, so why should I believe in Islam or any other religion? Good. Yeah.
When it comes to Islam, just the hardest questions the hardest question I always have to answer is like Aisha's regarding Aisha's age. That's just
Okay, Aisha's age, yeah. Okay.
that's always the hardest one for me.
Sure, sure. Yes.
So the question that sometimes I see it around, and I have an answer for it, but I'm not sure if it's the best answer.
So don't say the answer now. We're gonna get to that. But just a question.
So everything has been created from somewhere, and you're speaking about God, and He's the only one. He created everything, and you start giving examples. If you have a machine, you have a manufacturer for it, and all that. So God created everything. So what about God Himself? Who created it?
Beautiful. Okay, excellent. We're gonna come to that, by the way. Yeah, we're gonna talk about God's existence. Yes.
I have an interesting